Hello and welcome to a lecture on the importance of sustainable development of global aquaculture. My name is Graham Mayer. I'm a senior aquaculture officer focusing on aquatic genetic resources with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, based at our headquarters in Rome. I am based with the FAO's Division of Fisheries and Aquaculture, but also work closely with colleagues in the Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. The focus of today's lecture is really some background on the global importance of aquaculture development, and I'll be covering the statistics on the growth of aquaculture. Briefly, I will talk about the use of species in aquaculture, and then I will talk about why aquaculture is so important for the future of global food systems. And I will just touch at the end on the value of genetic importance to the future of aquaculture. So the graph here you see here is showing fisheries and aquaculture data since 1990. The red columns in this graph show the production from capture fisheries. And you can see that these are relatively stable over the years, and it is generally considered that the production from capture fisheries has stabilized and is unlikely to grow significantly in the future. You can see from the blue columns that aquaculture has shown extraordinary growth rates over the last 3 decades, generally growing at an average of around 5% per annum. This growth has come from a very low base. Growth is continuing, but the annual growth rate is declining. This is in percentage terms due obviously to the larger scale of production and therefore the relatively difficulty of keeping going at a proportional level, but also the greater emphasis on sustainability in countries like China, which is slowing the growth rate a little bit to ensure that future growth is fully sustainable. The line at the top of the graph shows the proportion of total aquatic food or total aquaculture and fisheries production that comes from aquaculture. And you can see that for all production, including plants, aquaculture now produces more than 50% of total production. The leveling off of this line in recent years is due to some increases in capture fisheries production and a slight slowing of the growth in aquaculture, but it's generally considered this trend of increasing proportion of production coming from aquaculture is likely to continue. Looking now at some key statistics, aquaculture has been the fastest growing food production sector over the past 50 years. Current production is 114 million tons, with a value of 264 billion US dollars. Of this production, 82 million tons is made up of aquatic animals and 36 million tons from aquatic plants. It's important to note that the developing world dominates production, and this is particularly the case for Asia. Asia dominates aquaculture production to the extent of 92% of global production, with China itself accounting for 60% of global production. Please note in this graph that the red line representing the production from the Asian region should be read against the axis on the right-hand side of the graph, because if we presented it on the same axis as the other regions, Asian production would absolutely dwarf the rest of global production. Moving on to some more interesting statistics, as we have just heard, aquaculture now contributes around about 50% of aquatic food production. Aquaculture currently represents around 17% of animal protein consumed. And aquaculture has been underpinning the doubling of per capita consumption of aquatic food since 1960. Looking at where production comes from, you can see in the graph on the right-hand side in the dark blue at the bottom that the majority of capture fisheries production actually comes from marine environments, whereas looking at the top 3, you can see that the light blue reflects freshwater aquaculture and the red mariculture. So you can see that unlike for capture fisheries, the majority of aquaculture production still comes from inland waters, and that is likely to continue, but we do need to intensify the level of production rather than expanding the areas under production, given that inland aquatic water supplies are limited. Let's look now at species use. We know from the publication of the recent State of the World Report of Aquatic Genetic Resources that countries across the world are now farming around 700 different species. And this list of cultured species is constantly growing as we search and develop mechanisms for farming new species. However, there is a commoditization or a focus on production of a smaller number of species. And if we look at this graph, we can see that the top 10 species under aquaculture represent now 50% of global production. And in fact, 75% of production comes from just 23 species. So we are constantly expanding the number of species that we farm, but many of them are niche markets, whereas we are also focusing in production on a small number of species, as you can see listed here on this graph. Looking at the types or the taxa that we use, finfish dominates production. So over 90% of global aquaculture production comes from finfish, but we still have significant production from mollusks, crustaceans, and aquatic plants. Finfish also dominate with regards to the diversity of species, with 340 species of finfish being recorded as produced, but we still have nearly 100 mollusk species and 60 crustacean species. So finfish is dominating global aquaculture production currently. What about the future of aquaculture importance? Aquaculture will undoubtedly be the principal driver of growth in aquatic food production, and aquaculture production is estimated to reach 103 metric tons by 2030 at a growth rate of around 2% per annum. This graph here shows projections made by the World Resources Institute based on FAO data. These projections were made back in 2010. You can already see from the graph I've superimposed on current production that we are already exceeding the projections made a decade ago. You can see here, however, that the growth in aquatic food production is going to come entirely from aquaculture, whilst wild capture fisheries production will remain relatively constant. So just to review the key messages from this presentation, we know that aquaculture production is growing and it's very important in global food systems. And just as an example, to put it into context, aquaculture production already exceeds the global production of beef. Aquaculture is considered to be one of the more sustainable forms of animal protein production. In a recent report by Eat Lancet, it was noted that aquaculture production, whilst it varies from system to system, generally produces lower levels of emissions, greenhouse gas emissions than other forms of livestock production, and is roughly equivalent to poultry production in that regard. But also it's well established now that aquatic food has higher nutritional value than many other forms of terrestrial protein. Expanded aquaculture production is needed to meet the growing demand for aquatic food, as we have seen from several of the graphs shown. We have established that inland aquaculture predominates, but the area for expansion of inland aquaculture is limited, and so we need to look at sustainable intensification of aquaculture production. And this is going to involve mechanisms to improve the efficiency of production. One of the major mechanisms that we can employ is to use genetic improvement. So the vast majority of aquatic species are currently not significantly improved, and so a widespread adoption of genetic improvement, which is the focus of this course, should be able to dramatically improve production efficiencies from aquaculture. So I'd like to thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you again in future lectures.